Hey guys, welcome back. So we're going to automate the login page for Reddit. Let's take a look at that. So first we want to do is open up our DevTools. Well, first you want to go to Reddit, and then you want to open up our DevTools. So F12 or right click and click inspect, and let's take a look at these fields. So we have our, here, let's close this for just a second. So we have our login name and our password, and then the login button. So let's take a look. Okay, so there's no ID here. Like there's no easy ID for this input field. But it looks like we have the name attribute, so we should be able to use that. And then also for the password, same thing, there's no ID for the password. Wow, there's not even a class, which is fine. There's plenty of techniques to get the selector path that we need, but we should just be able to use name. And as far as the login button, now it is currently disabled, so yeah, let's see what this looks like once we put some keys in here. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look at this login. Okay, so it's a button. Of tag button. Here, let me take a look. So we're going to have to use a XPath for this one. And that's okay. Yep, okay, yep. So we'll make a XPath for this one. So let's go ahead and get started. So we need our Visual Studio window. So let me just minimize this. Okay, so this is going to be our page template. So we're going to copy this variable page, and then we're going to customize it to be the Reddit login page. So this class is going to represent the login page. Okay, so let's go to our pages. So we're going to go into our, this is our variable page, and we're going to copy this. You can always add a new item, add new, and then create a new C# class, but we're just going to paste this. So we'll go to the variable one, and we will change the name to Reddit login page. And I will copy that name because I need to rename the file to match. We'll rename the class name to match the file name. So we'll do that. Here, let's zoom in a bit. Minimize this. Okay, so we have three elements we need to consider: the username, the password, and the login button. So let's go ahead and add. So we'll make our first one, which, if we remember, was name. So we'll have to use name, and it should just be username. And so we'll call this username by. And our iWeb element is going to be using the by selector's type by for its selector type. So this selector type is of name, and so this driver.find element, you have to tell it, you have to pass in what it's finding it by, and so it's finding it by a name. So the reason why we're doing this, if you're new, is when you first land on a page that you're trying to automate, the first thing you have to do is wait for the element to appear. And so we're using the expected conditions class inside of the wait until visible, and that takes a object type of by. And iWeb elements have a different amount of classes and methods that can interact with them. So an iWeb element can use the advanced actions API. So you can't do that. You can't use that with the by element. So I really like this technique because it just allows for you to have options depending on the website that you're working with. So if you're new here, quick rundown. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on. So we'll name this username elements. All right, and we'll just copy this and change it to password. This is going to be the same process for the password and for the login button. Make sure we're zoomed in. All right, so we'll just change this to password. And then this driver.find element, we're going to pass in the password by. All right, so the next thing we'll do something similar, but now we're going to have to build an XPath for the button. So we'll do login button by. I'm just appending by as the type at the end. Okay, so we'll do login button element. Okay, so we need to change this to match. We need to change these to match what's actually in the DOM, the document object model of the page we're automating. So if we're back here and let's go back to Reddit. So we're back here in Reddit and we want to see, okay, so it's lowercase. We need to change that capital U to lowercase u. It has to match exactly. And so the password should be the same. I was going to say assumptions, but you know what they say about making assumptions. Okay, so, yep. So now we have our username and password. Okay, so next we're going to have to make a custom XPath for this, the login button. So we need to figure that out. Let's clear these. Let's take a look. So what we can do here is we can do an XPath that looks for the tag button that has the class, that has one of these classes. I'm not sure why there's such a space between these class names, but technically all of these are classes because this is the parentheses that closes the class attributes. So let's make that XPath. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so we need to change this to XPath, capital X, capital P, and let's do something like, we're going to use the tag of button, and we're going to say it contains a class, and we'll choose one of the classes, and I'll choose the login class. Login. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure that that will work, but what we can do is we can test it. Here, I'll show you how to test it. So there's a function we can run to see if that XPath will be found. Okay, so there's our function. And maybe I'll put this in the description, but this is just a technique that I use to just check if the XPath can be found. So let's see if the XPath I just used will work, because I'm not sure if it will. Here, let's do this. Let's put our double quotes. Excellent. Excellent. So we found one matching element, and you can tell because it highlights here. So that tells us that this XPath, this selector path, will work to interact with this button. Okay? And if you guys want to see more on that, let me know down in the comments. But for now, I'm just going to move on. So now let's get our methods in place. So what do we need to do? We need to actually log in. So we'll say log in, and we'll use this similar pattern. So, but we also want to parameterize this method. So we want to pass in a username, and we want to pass in a password. So we're going to wait until the login button. We're going to wait for the login button of type by. So this object is of type by. We don't want to wait for we can't wait for the element. Let me show you what will happen if you try to wait for the element. So if we try to wait for the element, it's not going to accept that because the argument that the wait until visible method is expecting is of type by. So it can't take a iWebElement type object. So the signature only allows for the type that it allows for. So that's across the board. Okay, so just make sure that your object type that you're passing in matches what the method signature is requiring. So let's go ahead and change this back to by, and then we'll change this to, so the name of the web element will be login button element. So that's later on. We actually need the username, and we need to send keys to the username element. So we'll do send keys, and then we'll pass in our username. And then very similar, we'll do the same thing for the password. So this will be password by, and then we'll do password. Okay, so let's zoom out. This is the page that represents this page here. Let me just refresh it. So each class should represent a page on your website. Okay, so now let's create a test for it. So this is our structure. So let's go into tests, and we'll just take this example test and duplicate it. So the example test, this is the structure. Setup method runs first, test method runs second, teardown runs third. This can be out of order, but the annotations will always dictate the order. So even if I take teardown and I move it up here, it still runs last. Okay? So, all right, so the reason why this is red is because the class name does not match the file name. So we're going to call this Reddit login test. Solution Explorer. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. Let's put this back. Let's put that back. And there's a duplicate out there that exists. So this guy here, we need to make sure that there's only one class. So we'll call this Reddit login test. Let's zoom in so we can see what I'm doing here. Solution Explorer, and then we will change this class name to Reddit login test. Okay. Okay, so now we need to pull in our page so we can interact with it. So Reddit login page, and we'll call it Reddit login page. You could shorten it. You could just call it Reddit login. You could call it Reddit. You could even just call it R if you wanted to. But just to be descriptive, I will call it Reddit login page. It just can't be the exact case matching name as the class. So let's go ahead and do something very similar to this variable page. Reddit login page, and we need to pass in the driver. Okay, so now all we need to do is pull in our Reddit login page, referencing the object that is an instance of the class. So now we have access to the methods on the class. So now we just need to use our login method. And that's about it. Now, a couple more things we need to do. We need to define our username, test Reddit username, fake at yourtechstep.com. And then we need a password. So we'll do password. And then we just pass in username and password. Clean up that space. So now let's grab the URL so we can pass the string, the URL, into this driver.navigate go to URL, because this is what actually, so this is what opens the Chrome driver, excuse me, and then this is what actually navigates the Chrome driver to your desired URL. So when you type into the address bar, that's this action here. So let's go ahead and grab our Reddit login. Okay, so we can move this break into tech, which you guys should check this out. I go into a lot more detail here, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, Reddit login. So now, okay, so that's really the end of our test. But what I'll do, because we want to see what this looks like, I will add a temporary thread.sleep. We don't want to keep thread.sleeps. So I'll make this one for 5 seconds. And then also when this initializes, it's going to take me a second to drag the window over to this screen because I'm only sharing this window. So, okay. So now that that is done, so this is what our test looks like. Okay. So we can, here, let's zoom in a bit more. So we can right click and then choose run test. And let's give that a second to launch. Okay, it opened. Oh, I see. Okay, so I made a mistake here. Let's see. It's in the login page. There we go. Let's go back to our Reddit login test and let's run it again. Let's give this a meaningful name too. Let's say Reddit login test. Oh, okay, we don't want it to match the same name as the class. So we'll say sign into Reddit test. And we'll run this. Okay, and it opened. There we go. It did it. Perfect. And that's it. Awesome. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next one. And make sure when you're pushing your code into the repo, you delete your thread.sleeps. We don't want to actually keep thread.sleeps. That's just for testing. But production code shouldn't have any thread.sleeps. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next one.